What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics. Ladies and gentlemen, boy, oh boy, did we get some news today. The man himself, Nathan Rourke, has returned. It is official, a 3-year deal, back with the CFL after being cut by the Atlanta Falcons on, I believe, Sunday. Very quick turnaround. Cleared the 24-hour waiver period in the NFL, and bang, we wake up Tuesday morning, August 13th, and we have Nathan Rourke breaking news that he is back in the CFL. Oh boy, am I excited to get into this one, I tell you guys. But before we do, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Blake will be joining me momentarily. Until then, just overall excited at the same time, a little bit I don't know if bum's the right word, but feel for VA. Getting put into a tough situation here, having to you know basically get benched while you're the MLP front runner. But unbelievable stuff. Let's get into it. My man Blake is here. I see. Blake, can you hear me, buddy? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Cole. You can hear me all good?
We can hear you all good, buddy.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, it's definitely been a crazy day. I know I called you first thing as soon as I found out the news and knew that you would be pretty psyched about it. I was a little bit the opposite, and it was just a crazy day in general. It was hard to focus on work. I'm sure you felt the same.
Yep, I'll be honest, not a lot got done at work today. Rightfully so, though. Big news, big BC Lions news, big CFL news. I saw a lot of people, um, you know, talking and sharing their opinions on social media and all that sort of stuff. But this is league-wide news. I feel like a little bit. Watching Neil McAvoy's press conference there. I believe it was held this afternoon, and him just talking about how Rourke is a needle mover, I believe is what he called him. And, you know, remembering back to 2022 when they would travel to, Saskatchewan and Toronto and stuff like that, some of these markets that, he sells tickets just on his own. So this is crazy times. I'm interested to see and continue to talk about it. But, Blake and I are not going to be around too long, maybe 30 or 40 minutes here. We're both busy, but wanted to jump on quickly and just give and share our thoughts here. So, I don't know really where to start. I think we should maybe start with, I guess, Vernon Adams, and let's kind of get that out of the way with before we talk some Nathan Rourke. So, like I was just mentioning, a very brutal situation if we're kind of being honest and blunt about it for Vernon Adams. I think the MLP frontrunner 10 weeks into the season, banged up the last few weeks. And one thing that's crazy to me is you usually in pro sports, a lot of the time, you don't lose your starting position when you get injured. Sometimes things happen, and I don't think it's kind of I don't think this move was made just solely off VA's injury, but it's just I think it plays into how brutal this is for VA to kind of have to go to the bench now because a lot of people could say it's maybe selfish, but it really isn't selfish. He I feel like won this team over. It was his team. It was his locker room for the past year since Nathan left. Um, but for me personally, where I started to kind of feel like maybe the locker room, what we were talking about earlier when you called me and I was able to call you back of I started to kind of think now with when Nathan came back there a few weeks ago, I believe it was the Saskatchewan game, if I'm not mistaken, where he was in the locker room afterwards and stuff like that, and that's where it kind of popped into my head where I would hate for the locker room to have to be divided in this type of situation, just because I feel like they're both great quarterbacks. It's just unfortunate because kind of what Neil McAvoy said in the press conference as well is they've always maintained the same thing that if Nathan wants to come back, it's always been a mutual kind of feeling between the team and Nathan, that he would want to come back home and would want to come back to BC. I have no idea, I believe it was Coach Campbell said that he was the first one to call VA this morning and kind of let him know the news and stuff like that, and just fill him in what was going on. And he obviously said, a ton of mixed emotions. I would have no idea how, if you're Vernon Adams, how you would handle a phone call like that. And like I mentioned, I was kind of going off there before I went off a little bit from my point, but at almost, I think 99% of the time it would come off as selfishness, but in this point it's not, because like I was mentioning, he's won over the locker room. He's played to an MOP caliber. They were on the brink of a Grey Cup last year, etc. So, Blake, before I keep rambling on, I guess I'll just pass things to you, buddy, and just get your initial thoughts and kind of how you feel for VA.
Yeah, man. Like it's I said this to you when you and I were talking on the phone this morning. It's such a tough situation. Like, honestly, like, even just, I said to you on the phone this morning, putting our fandom aside, but I guess it's kind of the opposite. It's putting our, I guess if you want to call it, or at least what we're attempting to do, is get into the media side. So if you want to put our media side away for a minute and just like focus on our fandom, it's incredibly hard, man. Like, for me personally, it's I love VA. Like, I knew about a little bit about him when he was in Montreal and Hamilton and stuff like that. I believe I have that correct. He did play a little bit in Hamilton, did he not, Cole?
I believe so. I don't know how much he played, but I know that was the his kind of coming into the CFL. I believe he spent some time. Maybe I believe that was the stop where he had maybe not been on the field, but he had mentioned to his coach that put me anywhere, let me play receiver a little bit. I think that was his stop in Hamilton.
Yeah, so he played in Hamilton, like he played in Montreal, and everywhere he went, like we have our friend Cliffy D. He was kind of bantering back and forth with us over on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, earlier today, and he mentioned like the Casey Printers situation. I know you and I will get into that in a little bit, but it's like VA is loved wherever he goes, and part of the reason he is so loved is because everywhere he goes, he makes that place his family. Like, he brings his family out here. He gets a house, and as soon as he comes out here, he is involved in the community. You see him out at community events every time the team's at home. VA is always the one. He's like, you and I know this from being at BC Place, especially for yourself. Almost every game day this year, they have a little clock at BC Place after the game ends, and it's like, I think it's supposed to be 30 minutes or something along those lines of a player's supposed to be like, they can sign autographs for 25 minutes or whatever. Once that clock strikes zero, they're supposed to be back in the dressing room. The fans go home, they have the team breakdown, and they go from there. VA is always out there signing autographs. You see him always out there all the time with his little son. He's so beloved by the fans. And again, it's really hard for me personally because as a fan, like, I love that man. Like I told you this morning, Cole, when he became the starter after 2022, you have to remember he also came in when Nathan was with the team. Nathan suffered his knee injury. Vernon Adams came in and he did enough to get the Lions to the playoffs. And then once the Lions got to the playoffs, he was a consummate pro. He stepped aside. He let Nathan take the team, and he became the starter last year. I went out and spent money on a Vernon Adams jersey. I know I spent one for my kid too. And it's just like, I know Coach Campbell also said today that they don't plan on trading VA. And of course he's going to say that. Like, what else is he going to say in the media? He's going to be like, nah, yeah, Nathan's our guy now. Like, see you later, VA. Like, as you mentioned, like, especially with the way he's been playing, like, you can't do that to the fans. You can't do that to Vernon. Heck, you can't even do that to Nathan. So I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm psyched about the signing. Everybody knows the Lions have been going through a tailspin a little bit lately. Coach Campbell even admitted that after the game on Sunday. He said, you know what, guys? Like, he was talking to the media, and he's like, we've lost our identity 100%. He's like, our defense is, he didn't use these words. These are the words that I'm using. But he's like, our defense is garbage right now, and our offense can't move the ball anymore. Like, we need something to change drastically, and we need it fast. Because if you look around the Western Division, like, I'm not really scared of Calgary. Calgary's Calgary, whatever. But Saskatchewan, They're getting guys back. Harris is probably starting this week. Ouellette, he's missed 3 games in a row. He's probably going to be back. Winnipeg, maybe they're starting to get their swag back. Maybe not. We'll have to see what happens after this Sunday. Edmonton, especially if Trey Ford's injury isn't serious, they are a lot better team with Trey Ford as their starting quarterback than anybody else. So this West Division is a dogfight, and I think the Lions almost felt like they didn't have a choice. They had to go out. They had to make this move. Nathan has kind of decided, at least for the moment, that his NFL dreams are over, and he didn't want to go anywhere other than BC. BC didn't want him to go anywhere else. So this signing, I'm not super surprised about it, but by the same token, and I hope you can understand where I'm coming from, I'm not super ecstatic about it either.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Like I was saying, I am super flustered by this because, obviously, as you know, as a lot of people that have followed along for the last few years, I am a big Nathan Rourke guy. But that being said, I'm not a VA guy as well. I think people maybe feel like I come off as a VA hater sometimes, but I've always just been, I feel like, honest, right? He's when he plays great, he plays great, but sometimes you can almost see it from the jump that he's not in rhythm, and that's not to say like that's a problem. I think people try to take things maybe out of context a little bit, but like players have bad games. Like I was talking about with um Zach Collaros, right? Zach Collaros has had a bad stretch here. Not to say that he can't turn it around. Bo Levi Mitchell had a bad 4 years basically, and has kind of turned it around this year. Going to the NFL, there's been kind of tons of examples. So it's just I don't even know where to go for this, and I think maybe just to get back on task here is we'll kind of end the VA talk there, buddy, and get into the details of this deal and kind of break it down from there, and then go to kind of Nathan, and I'm sure we'll kind of creep back into VA and the team here to end things. But just to save us from going too long, let's get into the details of the deal here. So there's a few reports out there. I believe they're pretty much the same. Accuracy wise, they are. One is from obviously Forehand Logi, who tweeted basically the details of the deal, and then Justin Dunk from Three Down Nation as well wrote a little article just kind of um, detailing it as well. So this upcoming season, 2024, he will be a $250,000 cap hit, which I would imagine they're going to be able to make it work somehow with VA still being on the roster. Um, GM Neil McAvoy did say that there will be a pending roster move being made, but they don't play till Sunday, so they have some time to wait. I'm curious on what that could potentially be,
Maybe
because
VA
obviously
moves to the. Sorry to cut you off, Cole. There, but I was
the
what
sixth
I was
game.
gonna say was yeah, maybe VA moves to the 6th game because that way his
Yeah,
cap comes off the books.
I didn't think about that, which is probably a good call. But at the same token, it's just like I mentioned about just being flustered, man. There's so many different directions and um, thoughts when talking about the situation. Coach Campbell had mentioned that they are still on the timeline of VA being ready at some point in August. So if the 6th game was a possibility, I feel like obviously August wouldn't be a possibility.
No,
So I think that just adds to the wrench in this thing, because if VA is ready to go, they kind of have um, said now that the silver lining of this is having two basically QB1s essentially, right? And now that you have the depth of a VA and Nathan Rourke, where else would that move come? Me, where I thought about right away, Blake, is Michael Couture.
yeah,
Now, I don't know how things work in the CFL in terms of like you just straight up cut him, and like so in the NFL sometimes his money's guaranteed up until like if he's played already 10 games in the season, maybe Michael Couture's contract's already guaranteed. So it's like even if you cut him, you don't save anything. So I'm not too sure about those kind of details when it comes to the CFL salary cap and whatnot. But I would think a higher paid guy has been back into the lineup now for 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. The Lions have lost both games. VA got hurt in the first game back. So I'm curious if they look at, Tyler Packer has started both those games at left guard. Do they maybe slide him back over to center and they bring in Chris Slugger again and they go with what they had been, rolling with for the week 2 through 8 or whatever it might have been. I don't know where else, for a brief second, I maybe thought about, you know, and this was a very brief second, but, Christian Covington, just because, he really hasn't done much. We've seen them be kind of cutthroat with, Travis Fulgham coming up here from the
Yep.
NFL and not really producing right away, and they, cut ties with him. So I thought, you know what, would they maybe entertain that? And then I thought about, BC boy, first year back in the first year playing in the CFL, not even back in the CFL, first year playing in the CFL. So I think that might be a little bit unfair to him, and probably wanted to see him next year and going into maybe the back half of the season here, even maybe to get better. So other than that, I couldn't really think of any other names that could maybe come off the roster because obviously 200K, 250K, excuse me, isn't like it isn't, you can't cut a bench player. You can't cut a special teams player and get 250K, right? So
No.
it's going to have to be some significant, I would imagine, a significant piece that's going to come off the roster and or maybe a few. Um, so I'm very curious to see. Farhan also mentioned that the linebackers he thought would be okay. Bolacumbo and Ben Haladic. So I thought maybe that they could be placed on the 6th game as well, like you mentioned, and Ryder Varga and Ace Ely and stuff like that would step into the starting lineup. I don't think that's going to be a possibility. So curious to see what's going to happen here because the Lions are going to have to make a move for salary cap purposes to make sure that they're both able to get on the roster. Now, I guess let's continue. I guess before I get all over the place here to get into the deal. So 250K this upcoming season, and then you get into 2025 where I'll go into Justin Dunk's article here now, where just to kind of quote what he's saying here, he says Rourke inked a 3-year deal which includes 749,000 in hard money in 2025, 809,000 in hard money in 2026. He says per sources there are 6,000 in award incentives. So basically, just meaning if Nate wins, MOP, MOC, that he can earn another $6,000 in cash. That's in both seasons, and then that would take his potential earnings up to 755,000 in 2025 and 815,000 in 2026. And then it also mentions here that Rourke's compensation in those seasons includes 200,000 in marketing money, which does not count against the league's salary cap. As such, his cap number for 2025 checks in at 550,000, basically 549,000, and his 2026 salary cap hit will be 610,000. So, a very big deal. This is going to kind of, I believe, somewhat reset the quarterback market in the CFL. Um, Especially going into that 2026 year. Now, where things get interesting is where Vernon Adams is already is signed and extended into 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So now
Yep.
this pushes, or no, sorry, I believe VA is 20. Is it 2026 or 2025?
I believe it's 2026. I believe they're now both on 3-year deals.
Okay, um, so this is where it makes things interesting. Now, also where an even bigger gut punch. I'm curious if this was ever a conversation had with VA or if VA was just once again being a very good guy because if you think back to when he signed his extension with the team, he did not he did not blow the money out of the water. He did not go top of the market. He went I believe it was like 400K if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. So he took somewhat of a hometown discount if that's what you want to call it for the Lions. He took a discount to stay in BC. Um, when he could have, maybe looked elsewhere. Now you're gonna have to find a way to move that off the books. I would like Blake said, you're not gonna go out and just out yourself and kill all your leverage that you have, even though that you're kind of running out of leverage here, and say the plan is to trade VA. You're gonna say we want to hold on to VA, but the writing is on the wall that come I guess January 1st, could get into the new year there, and once things start to happen, I don't believe VA will be on the team come the start of the league year in February, March there, and that's very shitty. It's very sad. To lighten things up slightly, Blake, and to make a little bit of fun of you and Jordan. This is exactly why I do not get player jerseys, because it is a business at the end of the day. And as much as I love them, as much as you love them, I love Nathan Rourke. You love VA. There's no guarantee, man, and it's very shitty. I've for the Bills' sake, I've spent money that players that Tyrod Taylors that are there for a few years and then gone. Stephon Diggs now, right? It is a business at the end of the day. The teams do not give a care that these guys are the fan favorites, that these guys are loved in the community, that are you know it is just it kind of reminds you very quickly how much that things change, and I don't know how you can kind of operate with it's crazy because I feel like I'm like contradicting the Lions and contradicting myself, but like how you can operate in like how the Lions love to say family, and like Nathan Rourke is coming back to BC because of family. It's crazy how like you can do that to family because VA is essentially family. So
Yeah.
it is a very very weird time, man. I know we keep kind of going back. I keep going back and forth here, but this is just such a tough situation. Kind of why I wanted to get back on here and just kind of rant it out a little bit and share our opinion here. But to kind of end the details talk, like I mentioned, 2,000 of that in marketing money has kind of been introduced here in the last few years. I believe Winnipeg and Saskatchewan has kind of taken advantage of that when it comes to marketing money, and they can kind of give them, basically $200,000 to market themselves in the community and stuff like that. And the team is going to get that back in jersey sales and in game tickets, right? Our man Jay was mentioning that when Nathan was announced that he was coming back for the West, was it the West semifinal versus Calgary,
Yeah.
or yeah, that the West semifinal against Calgary, that I believe they sold an extra whatever how many tickets it was, and Farhan Lalji also mentioned that he would expect that an extra 5 or 6 thousand will trickle into BC Place on Sunday. The upper bowl is already opened. So like I was talking about, like Coach Campbell was talking about, he's a needle mover, Nathan Rourke. So I would imagine Amar Doman is fine, kind of paying him that extra 200,000 in marketing money, if you will, to get that back in I would think, I don't know about tenfold, but he was going to get that money back if Nathan's able to stay healthy and get back to form. So let's kind of end the contract talk is there. 3-year extension keeps Nathan Rourke on the team. He is 26 years old now. Um, don't know when he's a May 24th, so he just turned 26 years old. So he's going to turn 27 next year. I would imagine this is going to be a tough. I don't know exactly when Bo Levi Mitchell went to the NFL, but I would imagine this is, Farhan Lalji kind of alluded to possibly not closing the door on his NFL hopes, but I would think if he's gonna play out the 3-year deal, this would end all possibilities of his NFL dreams, because if the NFL team doesn't want to take a shot on a 24, 25, and 26-year-old with the talents that Nathan has, why would they want to do that on a 29-year-old or 30-year-old by that time? So I would think this is going to kind of lock Nathan into being a CFL player, a CFL, hopefully legend for BC Lions' sake. Let's get into, um, I guess we can kind of talk about Nathan more specifically and kind of going forward here. What are you expecting to see from Nathan Rourke? And it's been kind of talked about that he's possibly ready for Sunday, which I think is a little bit crazy, but at the same time, I guess I'm not shocked either. They mentioned in the press conference as well that he's not in Vancouver quite yet. He will be flying in, I believe, tonight, and then the plan would be to have him at practice. Um, Taking all the coach mentioned to have him take all the reps this week in practice, and then be ready to play in the game. So what are you expecting from Nathan Rourke? I guess if he's going to play on Sunday, like.
Yeah, no, I was what I was gonna say there, Cole, was that I'm kind of the opposite of you, where especially with the announcement, and as you mentioned, it was broken first. Where I first heard it was Sportsnet 650. that he will be at the practice facility tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the night of our normal weekly show. I would expect him to be ready to start because if you think about it, Cole, like he's been not necessarily in game action like the CFL, but he's been ramping up for the last month or so. Like he had his time with the Giants there, and then that didn't work out. He went to the Falcons, spent 10 days to 2 weeks or whatever it was down there, played in the preseason game last week, and then, of course, was released. And we heard today's news. So he's kind of in game action already. The one thing that you did mention when we were on the phone talking this morning is that he kind of has to learn the playbook again. It probably won't be the same playbook that he had in 2022. So that's the only thing that would kind of worry me personally. But especially with the fact that I didn't think it was very likely for VA to start this weekend. Whether he practices or not, we'll have to find out starting tomorrow throughout the rest of the week. But if your choices are Nathan Rourke or Jake Dolegala, we saw last week, like no disrespect to Jake, but I just plain and simply don't think he's a starting quarterback in the CFL. So if you have a Nathan Rourke that's knows 80% of the playbook, let's just throw out a number there, and Jake Dolegala is your option, I'm 100% out of 100 taking Nathan Rourke to start that game against the Bombers.
Yeah, man, gonna be interesting. I think it adds even a little bit more interest to the game on Sunday is the rivalry that kind of had been built there early on with the Nathan Rourke led lines. I believe went. Did he go winless in 2022? I remember being at the first game, week 3, I believe, in BC Place where
Yeah,
we
they
definitely
lost
lost.
that. Yeah.
Did we
And
win in
then
Winnipeg? Because obviously we lost in Winnipeg in the playoffs. Did we win in Winnipeg in that regular season?
I believe we did. I believe it was week 7 or 8. I'd have to go back and check for sure. I believe Nathan has beat the Bombers once, but he's 1-3 in his career, including that Western final.
Yeah, so a big time rivalry. And what gives me a little bit of hesitation on starting him on Sunday is just throwing him out there too quickly, and he's a little bit, excited, amped up, and he's just kind of do a little bit too much, and maybe that kind of gets things off to a on the wrong foot. I would rather it just be on a positive note. He's and hopefully he kind of and steps up, right? I would imagine the ball's going to be in his court in terms of if he's ready to start. I hope if he's not, he kind of voices that and says, I'm not ready. Let's maybe wait for is it the Ottawa next
Yeah,
weekend, Blake?
home and home. Yeah,
Yeah, so maybe he's hopefully smart in that situation. Where I would go back a little bit is it should be the same, same. I want to be, I guess, careful how I word this. Same playbook to a certain extent, right? Because it's the same. I guess it's the same playbook, maybe a slightly different scheme, right? Because so Jordan Maximic's still the offensive coordinator, but the the scheme with Nathan Rourke compared to with VA is definitely a little bit different. They have different skill sets, so I'd imagine the bread and butter, let's say first 10 plays, the first 25 plays or whatever Jordan Maximic has for VA is going to be look a little bit different than what is called for Nathan Rourke. So I think that is where things are going to have to be a little bit take time to be adjusted with. But Nathan should have a pretty reasonable upper hand on the same verbiage and stuff like that, right? The formations should I would think still be worded the same. Some of the concepts should still be worded the same. So Nathan should still be familiar with that. It's just going to be he's been in the NFL for the last 2 years. Things are different. He's been learning a different type of scheme, playbook, all that stuff. Especially the last year or so. What he's learned New York's, New England, New York's, and Atlanta's, I believe, in the last 7 months or something like that. And even
yeah.
to go back to last year, Jacksonville. If you think about in 12 months, he's learned 4 different playbooks. So that's where I
Jaguars.
think just make sure that he is 100% okay. Make sure that he is comfortable out there. He's not second guessing himself. He's not um what was the like second guessing himself and like, what was the formation, what was the route combo, stuff like that, right? I want him to be, as quick as possible, not thinking as much, and playing to the high level that I know he can. Now, where things are going to get interesting, buddy, is if um, he struggles, because as much as people are excited, I feel like there's quite a bit of people that are not happy. I feel like as well that are big VA fans, and I got someone that was an American tweet back at me today that he sees why Canadians love him. He sees the pull that he brings when he's back in Canada. But he said, bluntly, he said, "I hope the Lions this blows up in their face because of what they're doing to Vern Adams." And what we talked about on the phone, right, is why I'm so flustered, right? There's no bigger Vern Adams believer than, or sorry, Nathan Rourke believer than myself. I will say that up front, right? But there is absolutely no guarantee that Nathan Rourke comes back and lights the CFL on fire again. There's just not. As much as I'm a believer, and I think it's going to happen. I expect it to happen. There is absolutely no guarantees in life, no guarantees in football. And something that you mentioned earlier, something that I believe Cliffy's actually watching on Instagram. I can't see if he still is, but I saw that he was actually making a comment earlier. He actually mentioned when I made the comment about the jersey, he said on Instagram, he said, buying any in all capitals players jersey is a gamble unless it's a legacy player who retired with the team. And then actually, a buddy of mine, Al, hopefully he's still watching. I believe he's traveling. I believe he's in Mexico. He says only jersey I'll ever buy is a Buffalo legend, OJ Simpson. I'm gonna imagine that's a little tongue in cheek, but just funny. But Cliffy mentioned about Casey Printers.
Yep.
No guarantee that he comes back and is the same player that when he left, right? Nathan, that being Nathan Rourke. I expect Nathan Rourke to be that guy. I expect him to, maybe it takes him a week or two. I definitely aren't going to jump on the panic button and be very critical of the Lions if he struggles in Winnipeg this upcoming week, because I know the guy he is, and I would expect he's going to return to that level. But that being said, man, injuries can happen. We've seen that, right? And I've said it now with when it happened to Cody Fajardo, when it happened with VA, how things can change quickly for a team and for a season, man, at a drop of a hat. We saw it in 2022 with Nathan. Things were flying high, and one snap, and Pete Robertson falls on him, and boom, breaks his foot, and he's out. He returns, but he's not the same. So things can change. And for VA, where I hope things kind of he is able to stay ready and be motivated, because if he gets back in, I hope he has a very big chip on his shoulder to prove that, you know what, BC one, you guys fucked up because I'm not your guy anymore. But you know what? I'm gonna go, show to the other 8 teams that why you should bring me in and why you should make me your franchise guy and why the BC Lions maybe are wrong. And what's also going to be crazy, Blake, is that the 9-team league in the CFL, that if VA were to go somewhere next year, that we're guaranteed to, he's gonna come back to BC place. We're guaranteed to see him
Yep.
next year at some point. And how I would imagine difficult that's going to be for the crowd, because they're going to embrace him, right, and stuff like that. So I guess, what are your thoughts in terms of Nathan Rourke and maybe your confidence level that he's going to return to form?
Yeah, no, like I agree that I think Nathan's gonna hit the ground running per se, but I'll kind of go over that story. I know you responded to Cliffy and said that you were kind of like you started watching the CFL in 05, 06 kind of time. I actually do remember a little bit about Casey Printers. I've kind of been, not to flex or anything like that, but I've kind of been a Lions fan my whole life. I had some sort of season tickets in my family or whatever, pretty much my entire life. And that '04 season was probably like my earliest memory of the Lions, because Casey Printers came in, he lit up the CFL. The Lions, he won the MOP. The Lions made it to the Grey Cup against, I believe it was Toronto, and then they lost that game because I believe maybe near the end of the year, Casey got hurt, and then Dave Dickinson came in, kind of led the Lions to that Grey Cup, that game at least. And then Casey was healthy for the Grey Cup, and he was kind of he made it very known publicly that he wasn't happy with the legend Wally Buono, as Wally said, you know what, Casey, I don't care that you're healthy. You're not starting in the Grey Cup game. This is Dave's team now. He went to the NFL, didn't make it there, came back, and I believe the '06 season at that time was given the starting reins again, and then struggled throughout the season. It went back to Dave Dickinson. Dave Dickinson led the Lions to the Grey Cup victory in '06, and in '07 he became the permanent starter. So, as you said, there's no guarantee that Rourke's going to have instant success. However, knowing Nathan as I do and as I watched in 2022, is he an upgrade on a guy like, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I know it probably kind of sounds like I'm shitting on Jake Dolegala. I'm sure he's a very serviceable quarterback, but Nathan Rourke is just 10 times an upgrade.
Absolutely, man. And like the comment from Brian here in the chat, he says, "How much quarterback drama can we deal with this week? Almost every team in the league going through something craziness." The Bo Levi Mitchell benching I think was a little bit crazy for me. And then obviously the MBT, is he going to start this week? I believe Jeremiah Masoli is going to get the start in
He is.
Ottawa. Fajardo and Harris could be potentially coming back this week, if I'm not mistaken. And what other QB controversy? Jake Mayer still sucks.
Chad
uh,
Kelly, but the Argos are on a bye this week, so that's
yeah.
kind
So
of a
what? I guess quickly,
that
what has
that's a
happened?
next week thing.
I guess yeah. Let's save that for the weekly show. But I saw that whatever the CFL posted out there, and was curious about what that meant. But um,
Nothing.
let's
It
stick on.
to not take too much time. It means nothing. They'll
Okay,
announce their decision next week.
perfect. So Bobby also says it's okay to say Rourke is an upgrade over Dolegal, Blake. But Blake, not too much more to be said, honestly, buddy. We'll talk, I'm sure, quite a bit about it on the weekly show tomorrow. I just wanted to get on here and kind of get our thoughts out because obviously we only have an hour and a half tomorrow, and I would think we're gonna probably get a little bit worked up about some of this. I know coach is probably gonna take, rightfully so. Like it's not even like Wizard Take says here, and I think maybe just kind of took my I didn't even mean to say like selfish because it's not selfish by VA, but like from an outside perspective, right? Complaining about going to the bench seems selfish, right? But
Yep.
it's craziness, man, that this is happening, and we're dealing with this, right? I was I we talked about it on the weekly show 2 weeks ago when the Lions were shut out, I believe,
Yeah.
uh, to the Bums,
When he
and
was cut originally by the Giants.
when he was cut originally by the Giants. But I had always maintained that this is not a conversation to be had this year. This is a next year conversation. This is, Nathan is going to try to get into a camp next year. I know even if he has to sit all this year on the couch, essentially, that he's going to try to live out his NFL dreams. That is what he wants to do, right? And it's crazy that, you know, I was, hoping for the Bills to sign him yesterday, right? And
Yeah.
not on my radar that, if he doesn't go on, if he gets unclaimed in 24 hours, he can, he can reignite the conversation with the CFL. Not once did that cross my mind until, I heard GM Neil McAvoy talk about once that 24-hour period had been up, that, they had Nathan, I believe Nathan actually had reached out to them and mentioned that this
Well,
was something that he would
are you
like to
frozen
do.
there,
And
Cole, or is it me?
maybe I was a little bit, was I frozen for a little bit? Could have been just
I
the
think
Wi-Fi. Can you hear me
could
all
have
good
been
now?
me. Yeah, I can hear you. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
Awesome, buddy. Just craziness because he, like I was saying, not crossed my mind once, man. I just thought, there'd been another opportunity for him in the NFL. If it wasn't, in the coming days, it would be maybe in the coming weeks because, towards the end of preseason, quarterbacks get hurt, quarterbacks get cut. Maybe, the Giants bring him back in, or maybe whoever team it would have been that brings him back in. I didn't have Nathan Rourke coming back on my bingo card. I'll tell you that, Blake. And this definitely throws things for a loop. Things are going to change, and like I said, to bring it back to the weekly show, I would think we're going to probably spend a decent amount of time talking about this tomorrow. Unfortunately, once again, but just wanted to kind of jump on here, get Blake and I's opinion, so that we can not have to go as long-winded tomorrow, and kind of just go back to what we were referring to in this video, and just I know this is like I said, I agree with Blake, but maybe my excitement is a little bit more because of the Rourke fan I am. But this is a definitely a tough time for BC Lions fans, and just you know, personally, I'm flustered still. This happened what going on 7 hours ago, man, and
Yeah.
I'm still not sure how to kind of feel about things. Obviously, I'm excited. I want to I want to all jokes aside go into debt even more to go to the game on Saturday, but I won't because the Lions are coming over to Victoria here in a few weeks, so I will stay disciplined and wait for that touchdown Pacific. So I'm going to have a lot of fun there, but you know I am so jealous for everybody that's going to be in attendance on Sunday because I want to be there. There's going to be a lot of storylines. There's going to be all eyes on number 12 on I would imagine Vernon Adams on the sideline, how they
Yeah.
react, right? How like, and I don't know if I said it on the weekly show, if I said it on the post game show after the Lions got shut out, because that's where I kind of gave my thoughts a little bit more, and I was going to kind of put together a little bit of a YouTube short here, maybe later if I have some time, on exactly what I was kind of saying there, because we went so long winded into whether Nathan Rourke was going to come back or not, and we were talking about teams he was going to go to other than BC because we were so set that he was going to go to BC. So um, I kind of put a little bit more thoughts on that on the post game show. So I forget where I was going actually, Blake. My bad, viewers, and with this, but just this is such a flustering time. I think is kind of the way to kind of put things. But I am excited for Sunday just because the BC Lions are back after a very disappointing few weeks, and then the bye in there. It feels like I haven't been able to watch the Lions very much in the last month or so, and just exciting times, and can't wait to see them on Sunday. Blake, is there any final thoughts, buddy, before we kind of close things out and see everybody tomorrow?
No, I think you and I pretty much covered it all, Cole. It'll be interesting to see what happens at practice tomorrow, though, just for the simple fact that, of course, co-GM Neil McAvoy and Coach Campbell talked to the media today, of course. But as mentioned, Nathan will be at practice tomorrow. Is he going to be made available to the media? Is
He
Vernon
he
Adams going to be
he
made?
he is Nathan's going to be made available after practice. The BC Lions, or I think it was our friend Matt Baker put out.
Okay, so yeah, but like, is VA also going to be available to the media as well? Because you know that if we're asking the question, you know that how do I put this politely? The more well-seasoned media is going to ask even better versions of these questions of VA. Like, how are you taking about this? How are you feeling about this? And honestly, Cole, like if he's made available to the media, VA is going to answer every single question, and he's going to answer it like the pro he has always been. He's going to be like, you know what? I'm here for the team. If this is what it takes for the team to win the Grey Cup, I'm willing to do that, even if I'm not the starter. He might not believe it in his own head, and I don't think he does. I know VA, I know the type of competitor he is, but he's going to say that in the media. He's going to be like, the only thing that matters is that W. If Nathan helps us get a W, helps us win that Grey Cup ring at home, something that you guys have to remember as well. VA doesn't have one of those. As much as I'm a VA lover, we debated it with our friend Noah last year quite constantly when you and him had the weekly show for a little while before you and I kind of started the post games. Even when he came on before the West final, he was like, I have no faith in Vernon Adams at all. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to win this football game. Vernon Adams can't win the big game. So Vernon Adams wants to win a Grey Cup. He's going to say all the right things in the media whenever he's made available, whether that's tomorrow, whether that's later on this week, whether it's when he returns from injury. Maybe it's before touchdown Pacific. I don't know. But what I do know, as you said, it's been a flustering time today. I know we talked about it at the very beginning as soon as we went live. I found it quite hard as soon as I heard the news to stay focused on my training today. I knew you found it hard to stay focused on your work, so it'll be interesting. I'm excited. Like I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't not excited, but I was playing the kind of devil's advocate all day on what this meant for both quarterbacks. But I am excited about returning to BC.
Yeah, man, it is all the feelings, all the emotions today. Um, like you said, well said, by the way, but I'm so curious that, you know what, once the cameras come on, I would imagine that, you know, TSN is not a fool. They're going to have one camera, you know, set to following those guys' interactions on the sideline because I was very curious. You know, I was able to be, you know, in the bowels, if you want to call it, a BC place there in Saskatchewan when they played Saskatchewan, and you know, just trying to be a little bit nosy. I was curious, you know, around the locker room, trying to wait around after the game if you know I could see any interactions between Nathan Rourke and VA. Obviously, I would imagine those happened in the locker room, but I found it a little bit interesting that the Lions didn't put anything out in social media of, you know, they had a camera in the locker room when, you know, Nathan said some words. Um, no dap up or handshake, quick little clip from the two quarterbacks. Like you mentioned, Nathan will be made available tomorrow. I'm not too sure when VA will be made available. I know he spoke to the media last week, even though he was a bit injured, so maybe he still can speak to the media. But he's going to be the ultimate professional, like you mentioned. He'll answer all the questions. Same with Nathan Rourke. But I'm curious, man. How are those interactions on the sideline? Because they're, like I said, TSN is no dummy. They are going to have cameras on them all damn game on Sunday, and I would imagine all season long to see, you know, is VA on the bench looking over the you know the iPad with him, or is he, you know, standing over distant, right? Because it'll be a telltale, man. And like I mentioned earlier, early on when we were on the phone, I would hate for this to divide the locker room and ruin a shot at a home Grey Cup because that is my biggest fear. Because you know what, now we have the roster, we have the depth at quarterback that, you know, if we lose a VA or Nathan Rourke, the one or the other will be ready to step in. We have the weapons. We have a defense that hopefully once they get back to form, offensive line, you know, we'll talk about that another show, I'm sure. But the team is ready to go. So let's, you know, it's time to flip the switch. Let's go down the back half of this year. Let's run the table. Let's get the first play. Let's get the first seed. Let's, you know, get a nice rest in the West semifinal. Let's watch who we're going to play, and then let's go win the West final. Let's go win a great cup. I think that's the expectations, and always have been. So I think back to business as usual. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about this tomorrow, but after that, hopefully it's back to business as usual, and both guys are able to be professionals and work together and hopefully lean on each other because I think, like you said, hopefully VA, you know, sees that I've never won a Grey Cup and it's going to take all of us, right? I hope VA doesn't lose sight of that because we are going to need him, right? To you know, tie back to me being a backup quarterback, he's going to be, you know, be able to push the, you know, the starting defense in, you know, scout team looks, right, and give them the best look possible that we're, you know, in most situations, right? Maybe the starting defense is going against a better quarterback in practice in some of these games, right? And maybe that's a little bit unfair to say, but hopefully BA is able to take the defense to another level, right? And they're able to get those looks in practice. And then, you know, I kind of don't think it's going to be possible, but is there any sort of packages for VA or is there any sort of snaps? I don't think so, but there is the two quarterback rule where they can be on the field at the same time. So who knows? TBD, that'll be a conversation, I guess, for another day and kind of where we end things here tonight. Blake, finally, buddy, like, comment, subscribe for anybody that's tuning in. We appreciate all the support. Go follow us on Instagram at Canadian Football Fanatics, on Twitter or X at _ CF Fanatics. You can find us on YouTube at Canadian Football Fanatics as well. Please comment, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every time we go live. Surprising like this, not a lot of notice for everybody, not a lot of posting going out like this. Just a spontaneous wanting to go live and get our feelings out there, our thoughts out there. So subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys will get notified every time Blake and I go live or any sort of content's up on the channel. Blake, I think that'll do it for tonight, buddy. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more Nathan Rourke talk on the show tomorrow night, 6 o'clock sharp. You can find Blake and I, 610 Coach and Shane will be joining us to talk some CFL news and notes. I think there's some news to maybe talk about, and then give
Just
our
a
picks
little.
as well for the upcoming week. And then that'll be it. You'll see Blake and I post game show next week. And that'll be it for tonight, folks. So we will see you guys tomorrow night for some more Canadian Football Fanatics talk.